Good morning, friends, and welcome back. I'm going to show you how to take either a thrift store table or maybe you have a little table already on hand that you would like to upcycle and show you how I did this. I was able to paint this and I used a free printout from my printer. I do suggest you use a laser printer for this. If you don't have a laser printer, you can make copies of this and take them to your local large print store. Or if you go down below into the description of this video, there will be a spray there that some people have told me helps them preserve their inkjet prints. So there's no need for you to watch me paint the table. I do recommend chalk paint, since the chalk paint will cover up a bunch of scratches and chips that you may have in an older piece of furniture. Then went to this site called blockposters.com. You can do this for free. It's so simple. You upload an image. I got this image from the Graphics Fairy, and Block Posters will blow up this print and you can print it out, and this is all free. The print is free, Block Posters is free, and this is my copy paper. Thing I forgot to mention, I used a spray paint base coat, and I'll put a link for it down below, only over the surface of the table because the copy paper is so white I could not find any paint to match it except for this one white color so that the edges all blend in together. I found there is an option to get rid of the borders, which I tried to do a couple of times and I couldn't do it that easily. So I went ahead and printed this out with the borders, and by borders you can see that there's a little space here in between where it's blank, which you really don't want, but we're going to fix that so easily as long as you're making a black and white poster, and I'll show you how to do that. So the first thing I did with the table, now that the paint is dry, is I took this Decoupage, the matte medium, and I placed it all over the table. Now we're not working with napkins today, so we're not using the napkin decoupage glue, and I put 2 coats of this over the table, letting it dry between each coat. But what I'm doing is I'm making sure I'm in very, very bright light because you don't want to miss any spots and you want to make sure you get those ends. And I do want to show you a couple of things. First, this is the original table, the one that I sanded down and did all over again. Now, you will still need to do this part. I'm taking a magic marker because since there is a border there, I am adding the lines, almost like connecting the pattern. That's exactly what I'm doing. It was quite simple to just follow the pattern and add the lines, so it didn't look like there was a border. However, the one thing that really bothered me about this, the way it is right here, was you can see where each piece of paper ends. That's why we want to make sure we thin out the edge of every single piece of paper, which really only took a few minutes to do, so I'll show you how I did that. I took some Scotch tape from the dollar store, and I do think it matters that I got this from the dollar store because it isn't that sticky. I'm sure they used a subpar adhesive on here, and this way I was able to thin these edges out. So what I did was, with every single sheet of paper, I took a piece of Scotch tape, I went along the edge. Now you want to make sure that you hold a piece up with your fingers here, like I'm showing you right here. And then I'm going to rub the tape down on the paper and pretty slowly pull it away. So you see how that pulled up a nice piece of that? Trust me, I did this project twice. The first time when I had those heavy-duty lines, I said, no, this just doesn't look right. So I had to thin out those edges. This worked perfectly, and even though there's a slight bit of an edge, you really can't see it that well, and I was much happier the second time around. So on every single sheet of paper, I went around and I did this trick to make those edges a lot more smooth so they would blend right into the surface. The decoupage glue is completely dry here. And now I'm going to lay these papers out in the way that they were meant to be printed out. And I think I mentioned I got this from the Graphics Fairy. So you can just go over to the Graphics Fairy and there are several different free printouts. And if you want to use color, if you feel confident using markers to connect these papers that are in color, that's fine. I wanted to go with the black and white table anyway, so I was happy to just use the black marker. But I laid all of these out in the order they were supposed to be in. I then took parchment paper, and you want to make sure you're not using anything else but parchment paper because it can take the high heat of your iron. Your iron is going to be set to the highest setting, the hottest setting, and you want to make sure you don't have any water in there, any steam. You can use a craft iron for this, but I actually used a designated iron that I use for my decoupage projects over top of this. So you want to lay the parchment paper over the paper that you're going to iron down, and I thought this was a lot easier to do one at a time. And you're simply going to iron this down, and you're going to repeat this on every single one of your papers. Just make sure you're lining up the papers as exact as you can get them. Iron them down. Don't worry if something goes over the edge. We're going to sand that away anyway. And continue. My light is going off and on. I'm so sorry about that. So just make sure you are very careful to iron down those edges. And now I'll show you what the whole table looks like with all of the paper completely ironed down over it. Now once I had everything ironed down, and I suggest you do this too, just take your iron and go over the whole surface all over again. Just be as thorough as you possibly can. Now once you've got everything ironed down, it's quite easy to take your marker. And by the way guys, this was the original table where those papers, the edges, you could see them too clearly. I didn't film myself lining these on the second table where the lines are pretty much invisible, but this is how you do fill in those spaces. Just take a magic marker. You want it to be a fine point marker and just connect the lines from one sheet over to the other. And you can see these lines were bothering me so much I just had to do it all over again. However, you still follow these same steps. You want to file away these edges here and make sure you just go in one direction so that you don't pull up any of your work. And want to put a top coat over this. I'm going to put a link down below to the video where I told you which top coat to use over decoupage depending on what kind of project you're working on. This particular table is strictly for decorating purposes. I'm not going to be using it for anything, so I'm just putting this ultra matte top coat on here. If you're going to be using the table or if you want to hire gloss, this video that I made will explain what the difference is in the glosses, when you need to use one and when you should use the other. There are some that are heat proof, waterproof, weatherproof, etc. So that's what that other video will show you. I'm just putting this ultra matte top coat on here because I want this to look kind of old-fashioned. Here is our completed table. Thank you so much for subscribing, guys. Thank you for sharing my video. That is really helpful. I read all of your comments. I usually leave little hearts. If you've got some questions, please comment on my Upcycle with Decoupage page on Facebook. If you go over and like and follow the page, Upcycle with Decoupage, you can leave me a question either publicly or privately. That's up to you. And it takes me a few days, but I do try to get back to you and help you where I can. All right. And the links are down below for the products that you'll need, including a spray that might help you. I've never used it, but I've had viewers tell me they use this spray over their inkjet prints to help them stay waterproof. And I'll have a link for my ebook, Successful Decoupage Every Time, as well as the link to turn your smart device into a Kindle for free. Okay, guys, that's our video for the week. Thanks for subscribing. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.